Hi, my name is Georgia, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make these quick and easy sewn hearts for the Hearts for Hospitals project. So the idea of this project is that you make these hearts in pairs of two so that one can be given to a patient in the ICU and the other heart can be given to their family members that unfortunately can't be with them in person in the hospital due to the virus. This is just a quicker way to make these using the sewing machine. You can also crochet or knit these hearts if you know how to do that, but I figured this is a simpler way that more people could participate in this project. So down below I have a link to the Facebook post with the details on how to package these up and ship them, but feel free to reach out to your local hospitals and see if they want to participate in the project as well if you'd rather deliver to a different hospital. Just make sure that they get sealed in a Ziploc bag with the date on it because 72 hours have to pass by in order for hospitals to safely hand them out to patients. So let's get started. Okay, so let's start with what you're going to need to make these hearts. So first you're going to need a sewing machine. Now you could probably also just hand sew these if you want, but definitely the sewing machine makes it much quicker. You're going to need some scrap fabric to make your hearts. It doesn't need to be pink or red. You can use any color that you have. Just try to use what you have on hand, or you could also do delivery or curbside pickup from craft stores. I know Michael's is really quick with doing curbside pickup. And then you're going to need a template, a heart stencil. So I'm going to try to make a template and include the link down below so that you can just print it out directly onto cardstock or paper. And then you're going to need scissors, some thread, make sure you have a needle. I already have it threaded here, and then some sewing pins to hold your fabric in place while you're sewing, something to write with to trace on your fabric. So I'm just using this white fabric pencil. And lastly, you're going to need some of this fiber fill or polyfill to stuff your heart. So our first step is going to be to trace and cut out our hearts on the fabric. So you're going to want to do two hearts because then we're going to sew them together. So I'm going to start with tracing the first one. And now I'm going to cut it out. Okay, I've got the first heart cut out, and let's do the second one. Okay, so now I have the two hearts cut out, and the next step is going to be to pin them together. So you want to put the pattern side together if you're using a pattern. For this fabric, it doesn't really matter, but so you're just going to sandwich them together like this, lay them on top of each other, and then you're going to go in with your sewing pins and just place a couple along the edge here so that it holds together while you're sewing. So now we have the two pieces of fabric pinned together and we're ready to sew. So you can start anywhere when you're sewing, but I like to start right here towards the top of the heart and work your way around, but make sure that at some point you leave about a 1-inch opening, a 1-inch gap, so that when we're done, we can turn it inside out and then stuff it. Make sure that you back stitch in the beginning and the end so that your stitches stay together and your heart doesn't unravel. I'm going to start right here and do a couple stitches, back stitch, and I'm leaving about, I guess that's about a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so I'm just making sure that the edge of the fabric is aligned with the foot of my sewing machine. Yeah, so sometimes you might get to a point where you have to lift up your foot and kind of turn the fabric a little bit. Just make sure your needle is down and you can keep going. And you can sew right over the needles if you want. I kind of like to take them out as I go along, stick it into my pin cushion. I went to the bottom of the heart, the point of the heart. I'm going to now lift up my foot and rotate the fabric so that I can start going up now. And here is where I'm going to leave a little gap. So I'm gonna just sew a couple stitches. I'm gonna back stitch, and I'm going to lift up my needle, trim the thread, and then I'm gonna begin again about an inch down. Just make sure you back stitch and begin. Just make sure when you get to the point where you begin, you do a little back stitch again, and you are done sewing. And now let's take the pins out. So we get these. Before we turn it inside out, this is an important step. We want to take our scissors and cut a tiny little snip right here by like the middle of the heart, right where the two sides meet each other, right here. Just do a little snip, and we're gonna go around the curves of the heart and cut little triangles. So I'm just cutting tiny little triangles. Be careful with this. You don't wanna cut into your stitches, but cut these triangles so that when we go to turn it inside out, the shape of the heart will look much better. It's not going to look boxy or anything. The curve will look nicer. Okay, and now we're going to cut triangles on the other side. And now we can turn the whole thing inside out. So just pull the fabric through that opening. I find that it helps to take something like a pencil and to put it in the heart to try to get those edges nice and clean. So, okay, and there's our heart. Now we can stuff it with our fiber fill. I'm going to just put a little bit in at a time. And I think that looks good. So now our last step is going to be to sew up this little gap that we made. So take a needle and thread. You can choose any way that you like to sew it up. I like to do, I think it's called a whip stitch. I'm going to make sure that I don't know if you can see this, but just make sure that your seam is folded in, like the raw edge is folded in before you start to sew. And you could also pin this together, but I'm not going to. I'm just going over and through. You could also just do your basic stitch right along the edge, but I just kind of like this. It's totally okay if it's not perfect. It's homemade, made with love, and that's what matters. You could also use thread that matches your fabric if you want to make it less noticeable, but I'm just using white because that's what I have on hand. And just make sure when you get to the end that you secure it with a knot. So I just pick up a little bit of the fabric, make a loop, and pull it through. Okay, so there you have it, your finished heart. Thank you so much for helping with this amazing project. Be sure to let me know or send me a picture if you make these, and stay safe. Thank you.